Karen was like, oh, you have a problem with no panties? Then stay over there with your granny panties. What's the problem? Hi guys, welcome back to Nikki Faces Reality. We're here to discuss season 4 of The Single Life's Tell All Part 1. And it felt like a big tease. It felt like, yes, tea was spilled, but I want more. I need part 2 immediately. I can't wait to dive into it with you. Before we do, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Make sure that you do that so that you don't miss out on my future recaps. But yeah, let's get into this tell-all. So as always, we get, the scenes of them arriving, the scenes of them in the green room. And from very early on, Debbie made it clear that she's here to stir the pot, okay? She had an opinion about everyone and anything, looking like Big Bird, okay? Listen, Debbie and her Sesame Street looking sequin jacket was running her mouth all through the green room, okay? She wasn't talking about Tim's resting bitch face. She was talking about Chantel and how she thinks she's royalty because she has her own makeup team. I'm just like, are you paying for it? What? And then she throws some jabs on the fact that Chantel didn't wear underwear. And I'm just like, Debbie, don't throw stones from a glass house. Worry about your cuckoo's nest, and everyone else worry about theirs. And Debbie doesn't even have her own full segment in this episode, yet she's involved in everyone else's because she just couldn't stop running her mouth. A part of me feels like she did that because she's like, I'm old, it would be disrespectful if they come at me. But she's being wild disrespectful this entire episode. And I just need to say that. As for Natalie and John, they're not covered as well either in this episode. What we do know is that John is still living with Megan. And Natalie is saying that Josh has asked for a second chance. And so she's coming into this being like, I need to know where Michael and Josh stand because I deserve everything. And I'm just like, last we saw, Michael told you where he stood. And I guess Josh has taken back his whole spiel. So if there's anyone that you have to unpack things with, it's with yourself and maybe with Josh if you want to give him the energy. So let's get to the meat of the episode. Let's start with the Veronica Tim drama. Oh, Tim looks good, okay? He's let his facial hair grow. It looks like his hair's darker. He might have dyed it. This is a good look for Tim. Shout out to him. But as they're catching up with Sean, they keep just saying things like it's been a hard year. We've really stuck by each other. Mostly hinting at Veronica having a tough year. And I'm just like, okay, I wonder what that's about. And so Sean, of course, is like, well, the last time that we saw you, we introduced to the world your relationship with Jamal. Where do you two stand? And Veronica is like, well, we broke up and it was abrupt. Because last time we saw them, he said that he was, going to make plans to move out there, right? And so apparently Tim has been using his superpowers and he's holding his tongue real tight, not to say I told you so. But conveniently, of course, while Veronica and Jamal are not together, him and Luisa are no longer dating. Funny how that happened. And so we see backstage that Luisa and Jamal are waiting to get on. And Luisa's having a panic attack. She's taking deep breaths, seated, and Jamal kneels down and he's like, don't worry, I got your back. And I'm just like, what happened here? Now the exes are teaming up. They get to the stage and Jamal already looks over it. He does not want to be here. And so Tim and Veronica are going on and on about, their relationship and how it has, changed throughout the years, but they're really tight. And Jamal and Luisa are like, y'all are so fake. That's kind of their attitude about it. They're like, y'all both talk so much crap about each other. Y'all are not these besties that you claim to be. It's clear that their toxic dynamic and their codependency has bled into their relationships because Luisa and Jamal are fired up, but they just look also repulsed by the sight of Veronica and Tim. And so, of course, mainly Tim is fighting back. And Jamal is like, I have receipts, sweetheart. Like, you're not who you say you are. And Tim is like, what did you call me? And he's like, Jamal, are you trying to F me? And Jamal's like, and Luisa's like, you wish. I know that is a low blow to come at an ex's sexuality, but Luisa must have been pissed. Luisa seems like a nice girl, so she must have felt like she was done dirty for her to throw those kind of jabs, okay? The beef is beefing, okay? But what's extra clear is that the beef isn't just between them and Tim. It's between Luisa and Veronica. Except it looks like Veronica doesn't really know. Basically, everyone's just fighting each other at this point, right? And so Jamal is like, y'all are not the besties that you say you are because y'all talk so much shit about each other. Veronica apparently was telling Jamal that she thinks Tim is such a lowlife, that he's 40-something with roommates, that he can't keep a relationship. Lisa was like, oh yeah, she told you that? Well, Tim tells me that she's a drama queen, that he can't deal with her. It was so funny seeing these exes spill. I'm sure it wasn't funny for Veronica and Tim, but like they set themselves up. And this particular segment is more focused on Veronica, the Tim aspect of it all. We're going to dive deeper into it in part 2, I think. This part is mostly about Veronica and what led to their breakup, right? So apparently the breakup happened, according to Veronica, because he was supposed to come for an extended visit down to visit her in Charlotte. He canceled the trip. He said that he couldn't go home anymore. And when she apparently asked him, like, what happened, he was like, you don't need to know. And they didn't talk for a few days. And then she hit him up again, like, trying to follow up with him. And he basically was like, good luck, with a peace sign. That is a foul way to get broken up with. I don't think that's how it happened. I feel like we're missing some context. But the point is that she felt like it was abrupt. So, of course, Tim chimes in and he's like, Veronica's really big on closure. And because she didn't get that with the situation, she was depressed. She was down bad, and he was apparently scared for her. So Jamal's perspective on the breakup is completely different. He says that he told her that his mother has been going through some things, and he didn't specify what she was going through, but one of the things that happened during that time is that she had to sell her house. His mother was going through a hard time, and he had to be there for her. And apparently when he voiced that to Veronica, she was like, your mom doesn't need you to be there, like basically come to me. And apparently they were having these issues a lot in terms of communication. She felt like he wasn't doing enough, and so he was going through a lot, and he didn't feel like she was being empathetic or understanding of the situation. So he like took a step back, and so what he wanted was to take a break. I'm not sure if he communicated that part or if she heard it and was like, we don't do breaks here, like come to visit me. So he reached out to her apparently 2 weeks later because that's what he thought he needed, just 2 weeks. When he reaches out to her for 2 weeks, she's like, no, like I'm already feeling better, like I don't want to talk to you anymore. So I honestly feel like the truth is somewhere in the middle. So he was like, just in general, we are not a good fit. And he was like, I don't appreciate that you had me out here looking like I don't have a job, like because I live with my mother. He was like, I lived on my own and I moved back with my mother to help her and support her. And I had a job the whole time. So I don't appreciate like the way you speak about me. And it's true. I agree with that. I think that she did make it seem like he was a lowlife. Also, if he's a lowlife, why are you trying to make a husband out of a lowlife? I just feel like at her big age, Veronica really, I don't understand how they got into this relationship. I understand hooking up, but trying to make a relationship when you are very different and have the relationship that you have with your ex is a lot. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments. But Jamal clearly has a chip on his shoulder because he's like, don't play me out here, right? So Luisa's like, because when I went out with Veronica and we got drunk, well, she got drunk, she just kept going on and on about how she couldn't believe that she was with Jamal because he was a lowlife. And Jamal's like, you said that? And Veronica's like, deny, deny, deny. She's like, I didn't say that. Like, we're lying now? We're lying? I never said that. And so for some reason, Veronica goes into this mode where she insists on speaking to Luisa in Spanish. Luisa was defending herself and holding her own in English just fine. But this felt kind of nasty. So in Spanish, Veronica's looking at Luisa and she's like, you want to lie? After I've been defending you, you're dead to me. And then she walks off. And it's just so funny because Jamal hates not being included in the conversation that he's a part of. So he's like, what was that? Before seeing this season, I would have given Veronica the benefit of the doubt. But if this season has proven anything to me, is that she is very messy. She runs her mouth with whoever about people that she considers sacred to her. So, do I believe that she was bad-mouthing her boyfriend to a girlfriend while she's drunk? Absolutely. Aside from the fact that Jamal did not want to be there, I love that he was able to take accountability. He's like, listen, I know that I have a tendency to run from things. I should have communicated more about it. But moral of the story is, you and I are not a good fit. So that's as much as we see of them this episode. I have a feeling we'll see a lot more of them next week when they tackle the Luisa and Tim of it all. So yeah, let's move on to Tyray. Tyray is walking into the tell-all. He has an extra pep in his step. Of course, everyone's talking about the fact that he's a virgin, and Debbie and Natalie are like, don't be ashamed. That means you have integrity. And of course, John and Tim are like, you may want to lose that quick because you're 30-something. The conversation around his virginity is as expected. He tells everyone, he's like, what's been keeping him from dating is that he's afraid of rejection. And they tell him that rejection is just part of life and it's not as bad as he thinks it is in his mind. He really does have to keep putting himself out there. But probably the wildest transition Sean has ever made is this one, okay? Because she's like, yeah, you haven't slept with anyone, and we know a guy that has slept with 2,500 women, and he wants to give you a tip or two. Meet Sarper. Sarper. And as Debbie hears that, she is appalled, and she's like, Tyray, don't listen to him. And so Sarper starts his speech with like, you're a great guy, you're very smart, you're very kind, but there's one thing that's shadowing you. And I was afraid that he would say something about Tyray's physique because Sarper is so self-absorbed and weighs his girlfriends and measures every single part of his body. So I was like, TLC better control this man. But no, what he says is, you gotta get a handle on that giggle. And I can't believe it, but I agree with Sarper. Tyray's little nervous giggle is excessive. Someone on the stage, though, does not agree with Sarper, and they think that the giggle is endearing and makes him feel like a safe person, and so they're like, keep the giggle. And Debbie, who's obviously old school, just can't help but show how disgusted she is by Sarper. And she's flat out just slut-shaming everybody. Everyone else is trying to be discreet about their judgment, and she's just flat out yelling it at him. Sarper is not doing himself any favors, though, because he's here telling Tyray that he needs to do things like a tiger. He needs to see a girl that he likes, and he needs to wait until she has her back towards him, and then he needs to go towards her quietly, slowly, like a tiger hunting. And then he proceeds to say that Tyray then should kiss the girl on her neck, that she needs to feel his lips. And I was like, Sarper, that sounds a little SA to me. Tyray, don't catch a charge because you're not respecting people's boundaries. None of that sounded consensual to me. Aside from it being creepy, it was just not okay. And everybody is yelling at Tyray being like, do not listen to this guy. Sarper is an over-the-top character in 90 Day Fiancé, and it goes from him trying to be helpful to also in his way, like shaming Tyray. Because he tells Tyray that he should be ashamed of being a virgin at his age, that isn't something that he should be proud of. And then he goes into another analogy about being a captain and having passengers, and it was just weird. Then he's like, if you can't find one, you need to hire one. And John, in this moment, is receptive, and he's like, that's what I said. I really want to love. So, if you're going to do that later on, but not for your first time. That's not the experience that he wants. I don't think he's desperate to have sex. I think that love trumps sex for him. So, these are not the people that should be giving him advice. He's being super cool about it. Everyone's talking at him, giving him unsolicited advice. And he's just taking it, right? At this point, Debbie is fired up, okay? She's calling Sarper a dog, that he's a bad representative for men, that he should be ashamed. Did his mother raise him like that? Isn't he ashamed to be talking like that and his mother know it? And I'm just like, we're all adults. Yes, Sarper is a character, problematic, but what he does with his life is what he does. I know everyone loves Debbie, but I also can't when people want to speak like they're holier than thou. Just because you're older doesn't mean that you have sense. We've seen that Miss Debbie lacks sense. So her having this authoritative attitude is really pissing me off. And I just found myself yelling, shut up. And, she's here worried about what Sarper's mom thinks. You need to worry about your own son. You need to worry about the fact that you moved to live with someone that is younger than your son. I think Miss Debbie needs to worry about her own actions. And she just keeps running her mouth all the way through Chantel's segment, which we're going to next. Chantel looks gorgeous. She's looking like a swan in this white feathered number. Face is beat. Her hair looks amazing. I guess that team that everyone was talking shit about did a good job. She's on cloud nine from her vacation. She's still in communication with Giannis. And she's excited to see him at the tell-all, I guess through camera. She's catching up with Sean, and Sean is, rehashing the grease of it all. And she's asking her where she's at with that. We saw her out on the town, and Chantel is like, I didn't really date before Pedro, so I'm really having a good time with doing that right now. They ask her what has her approach been, and she says that she used to be shy about going into her DMs, but now she's having fun with it. And so they're like, oh yeah, we heard that you dated a rapper. And to my surprise, she's like, yeah, I dated Waka Flocka for a few. I even met his mom. And that's not who I expected her to mention at all. But now that I think of it, Chantel looks a lot like Waka Flocka's ex-wife. So, he has a type. But he does live in Atlanta, I think. So, a local one. But that's not the rapper that they thought she was going to say. Because out in the rumor mill was that Drake has slipped into her DMs. And I don't know how it came out, because she seems really mum about it in this tell-all. Tim is like, I heard Drake slipped in your DM. And she's like, no comment. So, I'm wondering what the story is there, because it was everywhere. And so, of course, they start discussing the requirements she wanted. She wanted someone that was attractive, someone that had a career going on, someone that had a big, the Greek salad. And they're like, you don't think that's a lot? That those are high expectations? And she's like, I've been through a lot, so I deserve what I want. And yes, I agree. I don't feel like you need to settle. You've already gone through the divorce. You might as well take the lessons that you got from that and get something better. My problem with her is that I feel that she's rushing it. But I have no problem with her having fun and having her list of criterias. And of course, and I always hate having these conversations with people about what their lists are, because people that are afraid to aim high start projecting their insecurities onto you. And so that's what started happening with Debbie and Veronica. Veronica's talking about, as I've gotten older, I've removed one thing off my list. And I'm like, and that's how you end up with situations like Jamal, where you are trying to make a husband out of a young man. Well, may work for one person, may not work for the next. Debbie begins her list of unsolicited advice and comments to Chantel, being like, your list is a bit out there and you're a bit vulnerable right now. And your friends are enabling you, basically. And I'm just like, you don't know this girl. And Chantel's just like, trying to keep it cute, but her face says it all. Her face is like, why are you in my business? The thing about Debbie is that, again, she has this air to her that she thinks because she's older, she's the wisest. And she's clearly not. So her advice to Chantel quickly turns to shame, okay? She's like, you're bragging about not wearing panties. What do you think your future kids are going to say when they see that? And Chantel's like, when they get to the appropriate age, they're gonna understand. Tim is adding to it about her not needing to do that because she's already a pretty girl. And my thing is Chantel never said that she needed to do that to get attention. She did those things because she wanted to. She has autonomy. That is her choice. If you wouldn't do it, if you don't find that attractive, then you're not the one for her. I really don't appreciate the shaming comments that were being made, and I'm so happy that Chantel spoke up for herself. She flat out was like, I feel like I'm being attacked for my choices. And so Debbie's like, you're sending the wrong signal. You want a high-class partner, and basically is like, but you're acting like trash. I understand that some people want someone that's more, conservative, more reserved. If you are that person, Chantel will not be for you. But to go as far to say that someone is trashy, and I'm a believer that if you're going to dish that kind of disrespect, you deserve to get it back. Debbie isn't senile. It's not like she doesn't know what she's saying. So I'm very eager for next week to see her get her butt handed to her by Karen, Chantel's mother. Chantel's mom is in the wings hearing it, and she's hearing how the conversation is getting progressively worse. And she tells the producer, can I come out now? Karen was like, oh, you have a problem with no panties? Then stay over there with your granny panties. What's the problem? So I am looking forward to next week. I just cannot. I would love to know your take on the whole segment of Chantel, but also Debbie's behavior, because did it set you guys off the way it did me, or am I being too much? So yeah, that was part 1. I cannot wait for part 2. I cannot wait to hear what went down exactly with Tim and Luisa. We get to see Mike and Josh's friends, and Colt's mom, Debbie. There's going to be so much for part 2. I cannot wait to talk about it with you. Make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss that recap. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.